And welcome back, everybody, to the BaseLINE podcast. I am your host, BenLine Newman, and today we got a special guest for you. We got a good buddy of mine who is one of the other interns with me at the Grand Rapids Gold, Mr. Hayden Johnson.
Hi guys, how you doing?
How you doing today?
Good.
Good. Now, what are we talking about today? Well, I'm wearing my Bradley March Madness shirt, which is very fitting because we are going to be talking about March Madness. Now, I know that this episode is going to be posted a few days earlier than they normally would, but we want to get this out as soon as possible before the tournament started, so we are posting this on Wednesday instead of on normal Friday. But with that being said, let's get right into the topic. You'll hear a lot of sports broadcasters who get paid to talk about this stuff, talk about which matchups are going to be great against what, who's going to win what, and you know what? Throw all that out the window because none of that matters. Yeah. This is March Madness. Anything is possible, and upsets are going to happen. So while Hayden and I's brackets most likely are not perfect and are not going to be...
Well, mine is. Mine's perfect, but...
No. While these are not going to be perfect, we're just going to go through and see who we like in each matchup. So we're going to try to go through most of the first rounds and then probably just briefly talk about who we have in the later rounds after that.
Absolutely.
So starting off with the West, it's no question that Gonzaga is going to win this first round. So we're just going to skip all the way down to Boise State versus Memphis. Now, Hayden, what do you like in this matchup?
Oh, man, I like Memphis.
Yeah.
Right now they're hot, and I think the biggest thing in March Madness is when teams are hot, it's a good time to pick them, and I think Memphis is that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they also have a player like Jalen Duren, who is going to be a lottery pick. They have a player like Imani Bates, who was one of the top recruits out of high school last year. Whether or not he goes to the draft this year or not, he's going to be a top pick as well. Their only troubles I could see them having in this matchup is that they have a lot of issues with foul troubles as well as turning the ball over. So besides that, I think that Memphis takes this one as well. Now, next matchup, we have UConn versus New Mexico State, a 5 seed versus a 12 seed. If you guys don't know much about NCAA history, there is a long history of 12 seeds beating 5 seeds. Now, I picked UConn for this matchup, but Hayden, you went a different route.
Yeah, I went New Mexico State, and the reason I did that is because they're a rebounding team. I think that they produce at an elite rate with rebounding. They have 54.6% of all available boards, and I think that as good as UConn is at shooting, they're just not going to be able to keep up.
I definitely agree with Hayden. It is definitely going to become with rebounds, and if UConn can limit New Mexico State's rebounds, I think it will be a very close game. Again, I'm giving UConn the edge, but Hayden's going with the first upset of his bracket with New Mexico State. Now, moving on to that, we have the 4th seed Arkansas versus the 13th seed Vermont. Now, I think that this is a really good matchup. Vermont has had a very great season this year. They are one of the top 3-point shooting teams with 37% from 3. They are also 10th in opponents' points per game, only allowing 60.3 points from their opposing teams. Now, Hayden, what do you like about this?
I like Arkansas because they've beaten some good teams down the stretch. That's kind of the main reason why I picked them. They beat Kentucky. They beat Tennessee, they beat Auburn, and so I think with those kind of bigger wins, I think they're going to be able to make it past the first round.
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas is a team that you don't normally see in the March Madness tournament, more so known for their football, but teams like this that you don't see that often can always make a big run. I mean, we saw a few years ago South Carolina making it all the way to the Final Four. Yep. We hardly ever see South Carolina in the tournament.
Exactly.
Now, moving on from that, we have Alabama facing off against the winner of Rutgers versus Notre Dame. I picked Rutgers. You also picked Rutgers to win that first 4 matchup. However, for that matchup, I picked Alabama. I think that they've been a very up and down team this year, losing to some not so good teams, but also being some pretty solid teams. What do you think, Hayden?
I think this one's going to be hard. I think this one's, whether it's Rutgers or Notre Dame going against them, they've had kind of a rough stretch in the last part of their season, losing 3 of their last 4 games. So I think it's going to be a hard one, but I think Alabama's going to come out.
If it is Rutgers playing Alabama, when you have someone with the name Scotty Barnes, even if he is a junior, you're going to struggle playing against someone like that.
Yeah.
Now, moving on to the next matchup, we have number 3, Texas Tech, going on against number 14, Montana State. Now, Hayden, let's start off with you on this one. What do you like about this matchup?
I think Texas Tech is a Sweet 16 team. I think their defense is going to come out and surprise Montana State, and as well as some other teams.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. I mean, Texas Tech has been fantastic in recent years when it comes to March Madness. I mean, making it to the final game just a few years ago. But I'm going to have to go with Montana State on this one. One, it's going to be a little bit biased for me. I have a buddy that goes to Montana State. But, I mean...
Biases, man. They're going to kill you.
I know. But... I mean, they are one of the best scoring teams in the NCAA. I mean, 48% from the field, 37% from 3, and 75% from free throw. They can score from virtually anywhere on the court, and if Texas Tech isn't careful, they could be in for a really tight matchup. Now next, for our Michigan people out there, we have number 7, Michigan State, going on against number 10, Davidson. Now, Davidson was a very solid team this season. Michigan State struggled here and there, but still had a very solid season as well. Hayden, what do you think about this?
This is one of those 7-10 matchups where I think Davidson's going to pull it out. I think they're going to have that upset, and I mean, as good as Michigan State has been, and also I am kind of a Michigan fan, I can't lie. I want to see Davidson beat Michigan State and have them get out in the first round.
Biases.
Exactly.
Now, I'm going to have to go with Michigan State on this one. This is going to be a very tight matchup, I think, between 2 very solid teams. Davidson is great at scoring the ball, has been since Steph Curry walked on those courts. But Michigan State is very solid defense, led by Marcus Bingham, who is averaging, I want to say it's 2 to 3 blocks a game. I mean, this is a great defense, and you can never truly count Izzo out when it comes to March Madness. So I'm going to go with Michigan State while Hayden goes with Davidson. We'll briefly mention Duke versus Cal State Fullerton. I don't really know much about Cal State Fullerton. I'm sure you don't either.
No.
But I think that this Duke team is going to be very special during this tournament. I mean, they have Paolo Banchero and AJ Griffin, 2 players that are going to be lottery picks come NBA draft time. And this is also Coach K's very last season at Duke. I feel like Duke could make a very big run this year.
We'll have to see. I feel like against UNC, that was a little bit scary. It was Coach K's last game, and they weren't able to pull it out. So I'm hoping Coach K can really put a fire underneath their butts, and I'm hoping that the Pistons get Paolo.
Me too. Now, moving on to the East, where we'll see Baylor as the number 1 seed. They're going to beat Norfolk State. There's not much to talk about in this one. But for number 8, North Carolina, and number 9, Marquette, I feel like this could be a very tight matchup. I mean, it's always really hard to gauge the 8 versus 9 seed matchups, and I feel like this is, in my opinion, probably the toughest one to pick out of the 2. But what do you have for this one?
I think Marquette is streaky, and I feel like because of that, it's not going to be a great game for them. North Carolina got some pretty good wins down the stretch, as I mentioned before. They beat Duke recently, I should say. And I think they're going to pull it out in the first game.
Yeah. I mean, with Marquette, both of these teams are great at different aspects of the game. Marquette is really great defensively. They're also very good at moving the ball around and getting shooters open. However, UNC is overall better at scoring and rebounding. And when it comes to basketball, I feel like those 2 matter a lot more than defense and passing.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, moving on from that, we have the 5 seed St. Mary's going on against the winner of Wyoming versus Indiana. What do you like about this one, Hayden?
Yeah, so I didn't mention that in my first 4. I didn't really say all my first 4, but I think Indiana is going to come out of the Wyoming matchup, and go against St. Mary's. But I feel like there's already been a lot of hype around St. Mary's, not only just as they've been playing, but around other experts, I feel like St. Mary's has been a big name, and I'm going to have to agree. You know, St. Mary's is going to come out. I think they're going to beat Indiana or Wyoming.
Yeah, I mean, I have Wyoming winning that first 4 game. I don't know why. I just decided to choose Wyoming. But against St. Mary's, I don't think they have a chance. St. Mary's is always a solid team, and consistently, almost every year, one of the only teams that can beat Gonzaga. And, you know, that's saying a lot. Obviously, they play 2 to 3 times a year, but, you know, when you beat the top team in the entire NCAA, it means something. Now, moving on from that, we have UCLA and Akron. Now, UCLA is going to try to recap on the great success that they had last season, now as a higher seed. Hayden, what do you think about this matchup?
Yeah, so I agree. UCLA, I think they're going to, you know, take what they did last season and try to do it again this season in March. You know, they're a March team, and Johnny Juzang, love that man. You know, didn't like him last year in certain matchups, but I've grown to love him, and I think he's going to take his team farther than we expect into this tournament.
Yeah, I mean, now, I don't really know much about Akron. I feel like the MAC conference isn't normally known for basketball. The best thing we know about Akron is that LeBron James grew up there.
Yep.
So, I'm also going to be choosing UCLA. We'll have to see how far they go. Again, I do love Johnny Juzang as well. He is a great player, but you don't often see repeating teams in the Final Four, things like that. So we'll have to see if they can repeat the success they had last year.
I think the experience they had last year will help them at least through the first round.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, moving on from that, we have number 6 Texas versus number 11 Virginia Tech. Now, Hayden, you and I both picked Virginia Tech.
Yes, we did. This is a 6-11 matchup. They won the ACC, I believe, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, and so I think with that, I mean, it just shows that they're hot right now. And again, like I said earlier, hot teams are going to make a push in the first round, and I think that's where this upset's going to come out. Yeah,
I mean, I chose Virginia Tech to go very far last year, and they let me down in the first round. Can they really let me down 2 years in a row? I don't think so.
Maybe they will.
Now, Texas is great defensively, but Virginia Tech is phenomenal at shooting from the 3, 39% from the 3, and I think that they're going to really make this Texas team struggle. Now, moving on from that, we have 3 seed Purdue versus number 14 Yale. Hayden, what do you think?
I love Purdue here. Purdue is another one of my teams that I have going deep, and that's because Jaden Ivey. I love Purdue's team. They looked good in the Big Ten tournament, and I want the Pistons to also be able to draft Jaden Ivey if Paolo's not there.
Draft both.
Draft them both.
Draft them both. Just trade.
Come on, Troy Weaver.
You can trade Jeremy Grant for one of those picks.
All right, off top. Here we go.
But yeah, I agree. I'm going to pick Purdue on this one. The only question I see with this matchup is Jaden Ivey did have a hard fall in the tournament. We'll see how healthy he really is for the March Madness tournament. If he is healthy, they're going to go pretty far. If he is slowing down with this injury, we could see him struggle. So
I agree.
Next matchup, we have number 7 Murray State versus number 10 San Francisco. Now, I really like Murray State as a team. They've only lost 2 games, one of them to Alabama earlier this season, the other against Eastern Tennessee, probably just a game that, they just had an off night. But Murray State, they don't excel at just one thing. They're very solid around a lot of areas, and I think that they're going to be a major dark horse in this tournament.
I agree. I like Murray State here. It's one of those 7-10 matchups, so those can be scary, but I think Murray State's going to pull it off.
Now, the last matchup of the east side of the bracket, number 2 Kentucky versus number 15 St. Peter's. Now, out of all the 2 seeds, I personally think that this is going to be the closest matchup between a 2 and a 15 seed.
I agree.
And I see on your bracket, Hayden, that you actually picked St. Peter's.
I did. And again, I don't know why I'm doing this, but for this bracket specifically, I'm going with those hot teams. Those teams that are hot right now. They say that when the teams are doing good at the right time, at the right place, they're going to go far. And I think right now St. Peter's is a hot team, and I think Kentucky is going to be upset.
Now, I originally picked Kentucky. But after doing a little bit of research, I'm actually going to change my pick and also go with St. Peter's. Kentucky is one of the biggest teams when it comes to fouls. They average nearly 20 fouls a game. And with that, St. Peter's shoots 72% from the free throw line. A really great free throw shooting team. Great rebounding, can pass the ball really well. I think that they are going to upset Kentucky as well.
We like that.
Now, moving on to the south end of the bracket, we have Arizona. We're not even ranked in the preseason rankings, and now they are one of the 4 1 seeds.
They are. Yeah, and again, for that first 4, I have Bryant over White State, but I think nonetheless, either team that comes out of there is going to have a short tournament run.
Absolutely. Next matchup, another very tough 8 to 9 seed matchup to pick, but we have number 8 Seton Hall versus number 9 TCU. Hayden, what do you like about this matchup?
I like Seton Hall. The biggest thing with them is their rebounding, and they're a ferocious rebounding team, and I think that's going to take TCU by storm.
Along with that, TCU is technically a better passing team, but Seton Hall also has the edge when it comes to three-point shooting, something that I also think is a big reason why Seton Hall is going to take the edge on this one. Now, moving on, we have number 5 Houston versus number 12 UAB. I don't really know where UAB is located, do you?
Nope, I have no idea.
No, but I'm still going to pick them over Houston. Why? Well, they are one of the best scoring teams in the entire NCAA, 6th and with 80.7 points per game. Now, while Houston is 4th for when it comes to their defense, only allowing 59 points per game, I think that UAB is going to make this team struggle more than I think anybody really thinks they will.
Yeah, and I think coming down the stretch, if they're in a tight game, Houston is terrible at making their free throws, and I think that's going to kill them. But nonetheless, in my bracket, I do have Houston coming out on top.
Now, following that, we have number 4 Illinois versus number 13 Chattanooga. Now, Chattanooga is, for us at least, working at the Gold, is best known for Matt Ryan, who is now on the Boston Celtics. Really great shooter, and this team is, I can see why he became such a good shooter with how good of a shooting team this is.
Yeah, I agree. And as much as I love saying their name, I think Chattanooga is really a one-guy kind of team. They have one guy who's super good, can do everything that they need for their team, but I think in a March Madness type tournament like this, one guy can't do it all, and I think that's going to be Chattanooga's downfall. So Illinois is going to come out of that matchup.
I agree. I think that this is going to be a very trying redemption year for Illinois. Obviously losing last year in the second round to Loyola. We all know about Loyola at this point. Mm-hmm. They are crazy good when it comes to March Madness. Shout out Sister Jean.
Shout out Sister Jean.
And I think that Illinois, led by Kofi Coburn, is going to try to push for a better tournament run this year. Now, next we have Colorado State versus Michigan. Now, I feel like a lot of people were surprised that Michigan actually made it to the bracket. I figured that they would make it to the bracket, but I thought that they'd be in the first 4 instead of Rutgers.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. I was honestly going into Selection Sunday, I thought they would probably be lowest a 14th seed, if not first 4.
But I thought they were going to be one of the best 14th seeds out there. If they,
yeah.
They have had a very up and down season this year. It could be a very close matchup, but I could definitely see them pulling out this victory.
Yeah, and this is where my bias comes in because I'm a big Michigan fan. So I do have Michigan actually upsetting this team, and I think that's the best we're going to get out of Michigan.
Now, next we have number 3, Tennessee versus number 14, Longwood. Now, some of you watching this are probably thinking, who is Longwood? No one knows. Longwood, for the men's and women's March Madness, punched in their first ever ticket in both programs' history this year. So they were playing their first ever March Madness, and I almost want to pick them just for that story alone. But I think I gotta go with Tennessee on this one.
Longwood, again, I've kind of gone with the theme of this bracket of picking teams who are red hot, and Longwood is one of those teams that's red hot right now. However, I think their defense is going to kill them, and I think nerves are going to get to them because, like you said, it's I think they're just going to be nervous. It's their first March Madness, And so I think Tennessee is going to come in here and take this one.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of pressure. I mean, Longwood, obviously in program history, has never been on a stage this big. You know, they could fall under pressure or they could shine. Tennessee has had a history of underperforming in March Madness, but a lot of sources are very high on this team. So we'll have to see what happens in that matchup.
Yeah. Remember, they're red hot, so if you pick them, I don't think you'll be upset.
Speaking of hot teams, next we have Ohio State versus Loyola. Now, obviously, we mentioned Loyola earlier. Now, these guys have been red hot since 2018. They always upset one team or another. What do you like about this?
Being a Michigan fan, I do not like Ohio State. I do root for the Big Ten, but I think Sister Jean and Loyola are going to take it.
I agree. I mean, Ohio State did have a good season, but Loyola just has a tendency of beating down these top teams. Loyola also has the Missouri Valley Conference Defensive Player of the Year in Lucas Williams. And as a guy who, went to a Missouri Valley school, I feel a little bit of bias picking Loyola, but
yeah,
nonetheless, I am picking Loyola in this matchup.
I do like Liddell. I like Liddell for Ohio State, and I think if he can do good, then they'll be able to make it to the next round. But I feel like he's just not going to live up to it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ohio State fans. You guys drew the short straw. You guys got Loyola. Time to pack your bags.
Now you have to deal with Sister Jean.
Now, the last matchup we have in the South region is Villanova versus Delaware. I feel like that Villanova is one of the more underrated 2 seeds. I feel like as a 2 seed, they could potentially make it to the Final Four, maybe even the championship. I mean, they have been a very good team in these last few years as well.
I agree. And, if this was a few years ago, I'd probably be completely disagreeing because I know that for a while, Villanova did have that curse of not being able to make it very far in March Madness. I think they've shaken that off over the last few years, and I think they're actually going to be a team that makes a deep run.
Now, moving on to the final corner of the March Madness bracket, we have the Midwest region. Starting off with Kansas versus the winner of Texas Southern or Texas A&M Corpus Christi. Obviously, I'm going to be picking Kansas for this one, but
yeah, same.
So we can just swiftly move on to that one. However, I do just want to briefly mention, as it comes to the overall bracket as a whole, Kansas has not made a Final Four since 2018. So while they are a top seed, in my opinion, they're probably the weakest 1 seed we have in this bracket.
Yeah, I agree. I think out of all the 1 seeds, they're not going to make it as far.
Exactly. Now, moving on from that, we have an 8th seed San Diego State versus the 9th seed Creighton. What do you like about this one?
I like San Diego State. I know it's a close matchup, but I think this is one of those 8-9 games where San Diego State is going to come out, and I think it's going to be because of their defense and their experience in closing games.
Absolutely. I mean, San Diego State is one of the best defensive teams in the NCAA, only allowing 57 points per game for their opponents. I mean, Creighton seems to make it in the tournament almost every year, but just has not been the same since those Dougie McDermott days.
Nope.
Now, next after that, we have number 5 Iowa versus number 12 Richmond. Now, these are two, in my opinion, the 2 hottest teams in March Madness right now, and they're playing each other in the first round.
And I like Iowa. I'm a Big Ten guy, like I said earlier, and I'm also a guy who likes to pick the teams that are red hot. And I understand that both of them are hot right now, but I think Iowa is going to come out and take that team.
Now, Iowa just briefly won the Big Ten tournament as a 5 seed, being a lot of really great teams. Richmond, on the other hand, also surprised everybody in their tournament, being the top 3 seeds as a 6 seed in VCU, Dayton, and Davidson. I mean, this is a very underrated team, and I guess we'll have to see which team is on a hotter streak. Now, moving on from that, we have number 4 Providence versus number 13 South Dakota State. Now, I am very high on the South Dakota State team. They are one of the best scoring teams in the NCAA. Second in points per game, only second to Gonzaga. Those are really great numbers to have as such a low seed.
I agree, and I think that's why they're going to upset Providence. I think they're going to make it on to the next round. Again, they're 30-4, and I think it's not a fluke. and we have some of those teams that are high win, low losing teams that are fluke because of their conference. But I think South Dakota State is going to come out.
No, I mean, as well as that, I mean, if Providence can defend them, which I don't think they can, I mean, South Dakota State shoots 44% from 3 and 76% from free throws. So even if they're struggling scoring, if Providence gets into foul trouble, it's over.
It's over.
Because they're just going to make every free throw. Now, moving on from that, we have the 6th seed LSU versus the 11th seed Iowa State. What do you think about this one?
I like Iowa State here. Again, I'm going to have one of those 6-11 upsets, and I think Iowa State's going to come out because LSU struggles with turnovers and shooting, and that is a recipe for upset right there.
I agree. I mean, I can never trust LSU in this tournament, ever. I mean, I've picked them multiple times. They've always let me down. I mean, both teams are very foul prone. LSU at 19 fouls per game, Iowa State at 18 fouls per game. LSU is the better rebounding team, but again, they've let me down in the past. I think they're going to let me down again. I'm picking out Iowa State. Moving on from that, we have the 3rd seed Wisconsin versus the number 14 Colgate toothpaste.
This is where our ad comes in for Colgate.
What do you like about this one, Hayden?
I like Wisconsin. They're a Big Ten team. Again, I'm big on the Big Ten, and so I think Wisconsin's going to take it here.
Now, this is the highest seed that Wisconsin has had since their 2015 run with Frank Kaminsky and Sam Decker, where they lost in the national championship game. Colgate is very good at shooting 40% from 3, but I think Wisconsin is going to take this one as well. Moving on from that, we have the 7th seed USC versus the 10th seed Miami. What do you think about this one?
This is going to be a close one again. 7-10 matchup. Those never go well for us. We always have to sit very uncomfortably while watching those matchups. I think this is going to be close, but I think USC is going to pull it out. But if they're close down the stretch and it's a tight game, USC has to go to the free throw line. They're going to be in trouble.
I agree. I mean, USC has the edge over Miami when it comes to rebounding, one of the better rebounding teams in the league. But again, if they get into foul trouble, Miami is very good at shooting free throws. So it's all going to be dependent on how well they rebound and if they can limit those fouls. Now, the very last matchup we have in the entire first round, we have Auburn versus Jacksonville State. Now, I know Hayden and I both picked St. Peter's to pick Kentucky, but in my opinion, Auburn is the weakest 2 seed. You might disagree, but...
Yeah, honestly, I'm going to sit here and say I don't know that much about Auburn.
Okay. Well, when it comes to Auburn, I mean, they are a great defensive team, averaging nearly 9 steals a game as well as 8 blocks a game. They hold their teams to 38% from the field, but they cannot shoot. They're a very defensive-heavy team, and while I think that might work out for them in the short run, I don't think that they can win it on defense alone. And that brings us to the final 4. For me, it's Duke, Murray State, Arizona, and Wisconsin. For Hayden, Gonzaga, Purdue, Villanova, and Iowa. Now, these are all very different matchups. None of our Final 4 are the same teams. So, we don't really have much to compare to. But, for my side of things, I mean, Duke versus Murray State, this is a great matchup, I think. Murray State, again, has played very well this season. Duke, you guys are going to continue this train to get Coach K his final championship of his college career, of his coaching career. And so I have Duke winning that one. And then when it comes to Arizona and Wisconsin, you guys have made a very impressive run in my bracket, but I think Arizona is going to win this one.
And for me, Gonzaga versus Purdue. Again, like I said earlier, Gonzaga is the best all-around team in this tournament, and I think that's going to show here. As much as I love Jaden Ivey and Purdue, this is where they're going to be taken out. Gonzaga is going to be in the championship once again. And then on the other side of my bracket, I have Villanova versus Iowa. And actually, for this bracket, I did have Iowa beating Villanova, but as we were talking right now, I'm actually going to switch, and I'm going to put Villanova in my championship game. And again, that is because they have been there before. They have the experience, the coaching, and like I said, their free throws and their turnovers are going to help them.
And that brings us to the final game. For me, Duke versus Arizona, and for Hayden, Gonzaga versus Villanova. Now, Hayden's is probably going to be a more realistic finals matchup. I mean, it was really hard for me to go against Gonzaga and Villanova because they're always just so good in this tournament. But I'm going to go with Duke beating Arizona. Coach K, congratulations. In my bracket, you finished off your amazing coaching career with a chip.
And I like that idea, and I love it. And I think, anyways, every bracket's going to be different, and we have no idea what's going to actually happen.
No.
So here we are.
We could have everything wrong.
Yeah, but I definitely am going a safer route, nonetheless, because we've seen both these teams in the championship before. They've had experience here. And for me, like I said earlier, Gonzaga, their best all-around team. They're going to come out. They're going to lead this team to a chip. Chet Holmberg is going to make things happen. And as much as I love Villanova, it's not going to happen for them.
And that's going to wrap it up for our brackets. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to Hayden for coming on and talking to me about this.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, please like, please subscribe, please comment down below. Who do you think is going to win March Madness? Who are some of your favorite upsets that could happen? Our brackets are definitely not the right brackets. These are just our opinions on what we think could happen, and we want to know what you guys think is going to happen. And in a few weeks, when this is all said and done, we might go live on Instagram and compare how well we did in these brackets. So look forward to that in the coming weeks once March Madness is over. Thank you so much to Hayden again. My name is BaseLINE Newman. Thank you guys so much for watching the BaseLINE podcast, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
Yes, sir. That was fun.